As the Founding Fathers knew well, a government that does not trust its honest, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens is not worthy of trust itself. Laws disarming honest citizens proclaim now that the government is the master, not the servant of its people. This was said by Jeff Snyder, a political science author and a strong supporter of the individual right to keep and bear arms, or the right to bear arms in a militia, or both according to dictionary.com. To my partner and I, this quote by Jeff Snyder shows that disarming the honest citizens of the United States will hurt our country rather than help. Furthermore, this quote signifies to us that this resolution is not only unreasonable, but immoral. We strongly disagree with the resolution of resolve that the United States federal government should significantly increase the restrictions of gun sales and ownership in urban areas. We disagree because this goes against the Second Amendment of our Constitution. Honest citizens need guns to defend themselves, and it is doubtful that the legal process in which a bill needs to become a federal law will allow this to pass. To begin, this resolution clearly goes against the Second Amendment of our great country's Constitution, which has been successful for 224 years. The Second Amendment is a law in our Constitution which says, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, according to the constitutional right. Also, might I point out that according to the Bureau of Justice, 665 gun crimes are prevented by protection of a gun in 2006. Finally, this resolution needs to be, secondly, also, the District of Columbia versus Heller ban case is a strong evidence that the Supreme Court is against changing the Second Amendment. This trial was brought to the Supreme Court case. It was brought here because Dick Heller, a security guard employed in D.C., applied for a handgun permit and was denied. He sued Washington, D.C. in 2008 for his constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Washington, D.C.'s defense was that since the laws of the city prohibit the purchase or ownership of a gun, Mr. Heller should not be able to own one. This led to arguing whether or not Mr. Heller should be allowed the permit of a handgun. After careful consideration, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Mr. Heller, stating that it was a citizen's right to bear arms, once again according to the case of G.C. versus Heller from gunfacts.info. To my partner and I, this is a clear indicator that the Supreme Court is in favor of this amendment, and that it is doubtful that they will let this law pass. Secondly, this resolution hurts the honest citizens who could potentially be victims because they won't be able to defend themselves as easily. There are many documented accounts of people in urban areas who were able to defend themselves by means of firearms. For example, an article published in GunNotTV.com talked about two criminals who intruded on a house party in Atlanta, Georgia, which is one of the most dangerous cities in America. The criminals separated the men and women into two rooms. They then proceeded to strip the guests of their valuables, and it was documented that the students believed the criminals would then murder all of the guests. One of the men attending the party pulled a firearm from his backpack and fired at the intruder. After firing at the criminal then fled the scene. Then, the armed guest went into the women's room and interrupted the second criminal's attempt at raping one of the female guests. The guest and the criminal then exchanged fire. The second criminal then fled the scene as well. Needless to say, this situation could have been much worse if this guest did not use his constitutional right and be armed. Finally, this resolution needs to become a bill and must go through a very rigorous process to allow this law to be in effect. According to jreg.org, which is a website that explains how a federal law is made from a bill, for a bill to be passed into a federal law, a member of the House of Representatives must first introduce or sponsor this bill. Then, the House Speaker or the presiding officer in the Senate refers it to an appropriate committee, such as the House Rules Committee. Following the approval of both houses of Congress, the bill is then passed onto the President for approval. The President may veto the law or approve it. if the President approves it, then and only then may this bill become a federal law. According to usgov.info.com, only 2.5% of bills become a federal law each year, meaning that the chances of a bill being approved to change current laws are little to none. To conclude, this resolution not only goes against our Constitution, but it also hurts the self-defense of our citizens and is very hard to obtain as a law. My partner Tautau and I firmly believe that this resolution does not solve a problem, but causes one. A friend of mine, Mark Spector, a man who works in West Philadelphia, was thinking about purchasing a gun. He wanted it for the reason of self-defense. This resolution is not making it harder for a criminal to endanger Mark, because they may get it legally, but it makes it harder for Mark to defend himself. If safety is a primary goal in America, then why should someone like Mark feel unsafe? If we continue with this resolution, won't our country actually feel unsafe? Thank you, and please vote negative.